back to America Talks Live. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. The Virginia state legislature is now controlled by all Democrats. I would even go far as to say socialist, bordering communist, the way that they're acting. They took all three chambers during the midterm elections earlier this year. Governor Ralph Northam has promised sweeping gun control legislation soon. So what does this mean for the gun control debate? Let's bring in a good buddy of mine and talk about this. That's where we want to bring in Brian Kovacs, who is the founder of TalkingGuns.net. Make sure you go to that .net, not .com. It's TalkingGuns.net. And, Brian, we'll talk about your website here in a minute, but I wanted to ask you, you know, this is a governor that said it was okay to take a baby that was born, set it to the side, and then debate with the doctor and the mom on whether or not that baby should be terminated. This guy is now in charge of a state that has all the chambers agreeing with him ideologically, and immediately they go after guns. What kind of lesson is this, first of all, for the American voters all around the country? What do you think is the worst that could happen? And then let's talk about in a second, I'll ask you another question about how some of the people in Virginia are acting and coming and rising to the occasion, how that's the way that the rest of the country should also react. But let's start with, what is the worst that could happen here?
I think the worst that could happen is people in Virginia end up under a rule or a new law that gets passed where they don't have any gun rights anymore. They're going to lose the ability to have the most common sporting firearms, whether that be different types of handguns or rifles or shotguns, just because of particular characteristics that the people in the state now feel are evil or not something that the general populace should have.
You live in Arizona, and Arizona is constitutional carry. So anybody that is a citizen can carry a weapon. Is that not, they can conceal carry a weapon?
That is correct. So basically, because the Second Amendment is what it is, in our state, basically anybody who is not a felon or prohibited possessor due to being mentally adjunct or otherwise, any citizen is allowed to carry concealed, open, doesn't matter. It is your right to choose.
And how much more dangerous is it there? I mean, on the night when you watch the news, how many law-abiding citizens are just going out and randomly killing people with their guns?
That is pretty much not happening. People are thinking twice before committing crimes here, for the most part. Not saying it doesn't happen, because we still have two very large cities here, you know, being Phoenix and Tucson. There still is the violent crime, but the violent crime is not being committed by the citizens who are still carrying. They are being committed by the same criminals that would be carrying regardless of the law.
So here's a question I have for Virginia, and I know you're asking the same question, is where are the voters in Virginia? Where are the conservative voters in Virginia that are allowing this to happen? Because they're the ones who are now having to react. And I want you to describe to everybody a little bit about what's happening there with the sheriffs, and actually now people who call themselves militia or are joining militias to support these sheriffs and these chiefs of police.
Absolutely. So basically now you have 100+ cities and counties that have signed on to the Second Amendment sanctuaries within Virginia, which is pretty outstanding. The only problem is that the Attorney General has made mention that it doesn't matter what they do, it's trivial. They will still commit to gun confiscation and still enforce gun control laws once they are passed in January. It's very disturbing to me that they would go against the will of the sheriffs of those counties. I personally don't understand how they would be able to do it. I think it is going to be an actual constitutional crisis in Virginia. I wonder if the voters may do a recall.
Explain to everybody a little bit about that, because most people don't realize the authority of a sheriff. You got about 1 minute. Go ahead.
So the sheriff can actually enforce laws or choose not to enforce laws, essentially nullifying them in his jurisdiction. It can be challenged in court, but he could actually stop federal agencies even from operating within the boundaries of his county.
Yeah, most people don't realize that about sheriffs. So one last thing real quick, Brian. The people that are joining them is potentially something that could happen in all these cities around the country where the leftists are getting in control. And it's a good example of how they should react to this.
Exactly. I mean, even in Virginia, they're talking about they're forming militias now to prevent the gun confiscations, to prevent the new gun laws from coming into effect. Personally, I think it's going to be an interesting situation to continue developing and watch as it's going.
Yeah, and unfortunately, law enforcement is stuck in the middle of that. That's the real problem with this whole thing.
That is the big issue. They are going to have to basically choose a side.
Right. Listen, Brian, thank you very much for joining us today. I'll be seeing you at SHOT Show real soon in January. God bless you, and God bless Arizona and the voters out there for getting it right.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas to you, Jonathan.
Merry Christmas, my friend. So I hope that goes and shows everybody a little bit about what the reality is when you don't go and vote. This is what can happen. Coming up, how should people really celebrate the holiday season?